Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Respawn Aim Fire, the Kick-Ass Reverend Gaming Podcast from RAF Idiots. I'm your host, Adam. He's running the show, not live on Twitch, but we're still here to hang out with our buddies, Gumbert. And today I have with me,
Hey,
he's another mouse from the house. It's just Alex. What's your favorite rodent? Cosita.
what's my favorite rodent?
Or marsupial. I'll accept a
Yeah,
marsupial as well.
I mean, as a full-blooded Canadian, I feel like I have to go with the beaver. Beavers, real cool animals. It's kind of impressive, how handicrafty they are. How from birth they know instinctively how to create all sorts of complicated dams and water houses. I'll go with beavers. Good
Water
animals.
houses?
Yeah, I will say you scared me a little bit there at the beginning, starting the podcast just like that. We are not doing this live on Twitch for once because raccoons got into our Twitch machine again, and we had to do a local recording on this one. And you did not give me any heads up at all that we were going to start at right that moment. I still had everything ready to go. We're still recording. We're still good, but I was very much like, oh shit, now we're recording. I guess this is how the podcast is going to be today.
Oh yeah, that's funny. I do. Yeah, I do that all the time. I'll just start doing something, not tell anybody. Now, before we get started, right? Normally, you can catch us live on twitch.tv/AffleBeatty Sunday evenings at 8:30. YouTube and podcast services. Excuse me, 9 a.m. on Tuesdays. Following up. So we talked about it before. We didn't continue it. Not related to rodents or marsupials, but I was asking you about Amazing Spider-Man and what your story with that movie was.
Yeah. So, first off, I'm very curious why you wanted to bring up these movies. But before we get into your side of the coin, my experience with the Amazing Spider Man movies is real interesting in that. So, growing up, I did not watch the Sam Raimi Spider Man movies at all because my parents found them too scary for a young, I don't know, 11-year-old cozy to watch. I don't know how old I was when those movies came out. It probably was closer to 7. In any case, they did not let me watch those movies. I largely knew of them through the various clips of them or like catching the final 5 minutes of them on like Canadian TV. The first Spider-Man movie that I ended up seeing ended up being The Amazing Spider-Man 2 because I was in a class in college called The Physics of Hollywood, which was very much to its name a class about basically learning about physics through the way in which they're represented in Hollywood movies and being like, well, this is an example of a movie where physics are really done correctly. And they would also be like, and this is by comparison an example of a movie where physics are done real incorrectly. It was kind of like analyzing physics and science through the ways in which they're done correctly and incorrectly in some of our favorite blockbusters. And basically, Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, was sort of our last like assignment of the course. Basically, that movie came out like literally the last week of class, and our professor was like, I want you to go into a movie theater and I want you guys to watch Amazing Spider-Man 2 and then write a report afterwards on the ways in which the physics in the movie were or were not consistent with the way that physics work in real life. And it was this really weird thing where, like, going into the movie, I didn't really read a lot of reviews, didn't really know what the overall vibe was on it. Watched it, had a good time, and then had a great time writing up a physics paper on the movie and what I thought about the physics of it. Had an even greater time when I got a passing score for the course. I didn't get like an amazing score, but I got like like an 83 or something. Like I was happy to take it. And it was a little bit disappointing in the years following to realize, oh man, everybody hates that movie. Like that movie is like kind of despised. And watching it in the theater that first time, I totally understood why some people might not love it, but I'll stick up for that movie a little bit here and there. You want to hear my ultra hot, flaming hot nuclear take on that movie?
Go for it.
I think that the Hans Zimmer song that he uses for the introduction of Electro might be the single best piece of music in any Marvel movie ever.
So,
I think that particular score is a masterclass, and I will be taking no comments or questions at this time.
I will say it's very good. I noticed that while watching it. The reason I brought it up is because I watched Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 this weekend just because I felt like it.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen them since movie theaters, I think. First of all, I think it's DJ Junkie XL who does the... Or is it Hans Zimmer?
It's Hans Zimmer because he's done like live shows in Europe where he plays that specific
But I think
song
it was
for the
DJ
movie.
Junkie XL. He did something stupid.
Yeah.
But no, I do like Electro's. His soundtrack is very, very, very good. all like the voices speaking in the background and all the heavy electronic stuff. It's really good. It's really good. I'll give it to you. Movie is fine. It's whatever. It's funny watching Far From Home and how they bring all those other guys around. I will say the suit from Amazing Spider-Man 2 was probably my favorite Spider-Man suit until Tom Holland's iron suit or whatever, because
I can see that.
Solid. It's really good.
Hold on, before we go on, real quick, Amazing Spider-Man 1, I actually, it's funny, I saw Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then eventually I saw the Raimi movies. I only saw Amazing Spider-Man 1 when Kind of Funny did their like in review series on the Spider-Man movies, and so I watched the movie then, thought it was fine. Didn't need that whole subplot of people being turned into lizards. Would have done without it.
That was a small part of the movie. I will say, I do like Andrew Garfield a lot. That's why I love seeing him come back in Far From Home. He's a little pushy when it comes to hanging out with Gwen Stacy. She's like, we can't be together. He's like, no, kiss me. We're going to be together. I'm like, oof, Andrew Garfield, let's relax, buddy. But no, it's fun.
Oh, man.
It's fun enough.
If only things ended badly for them.
If only she went off to Europe and didn't have to worry about anything. Also, Green Goblin at the end of Animated Spider-Man 2 is stupid. First up on today's show, we're going to talk about video game stuff now, even though Spider-Man counts as video games. This one's for you, Cozy. Only for you. That's the only reason I put it here. Next Nintendo movie's been announced from Andy Robinson at VGC. Nintendo has announced it will develop a live-action film of Legend of Zelda. Film will be produced by Shigeru Miyamoto, representative director and fellow of Nintendo, and veteran Hollywood producer Avi Arad.
Avi Arad.
Is it Arad?
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
He did.
I don't know with certainty.
A lot of the he did those early Spider-Man movie. Well, he produced.
He's basically been a producer on every non-MCU like Marvel
superhero movie.
Like going back down the timeline, like he produced the Daredevil movie, he produced like Elektra, he produced all those movies. Yes, Venom 2, Morbius. That was one of my favorite things to come out of this announcement is someone did the box art from Twilight Princess, but instead of the like Wolf Link and Link on the cover, it was Morbius, but like with the split image thing where it's like one version of him is normal and the other version is the vampire. Thought that was really funny.
Yeah. The main reason it's him is because it's Nintendo's partnering with Sony, and he's just like the guy over Sony, basically. Directed by Wes Ball, the director behind the Maze Runner trilogy and next year's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Miyamoto said in a statement, I've been working on the live-action film of The Legend of Zelda for many years now with Avi... Is it Arad, you said?
Avi Arad.
Avi Arad.
Don't know with certainty, but I think.
I don't know. Who has produced many mega-hit films. I have asked Avi-san to produce this film with me, and we now have officially started development of the film with Nintendo itself heavily involved in the production. It will take time until its completion, but I hope you look forward to seeing it. So yeah, Miyamoto's like, it's happening, I'm producing. Live action is the only thing that we really know. And then with the director.
Yeah, I mean, much like Nintendo partnering with Illumination for the Mario movie, this is very much like, look, you're definitely going to get a movie out of this deal that's going to be profitable, but there's not necessarily a lot of confidence amongst us fans that this is going to be the best movie in the world. I pulled up Avi Arad's like filmography after we talked about what movies he did or didn't produce. Like I said, he's had his hand on like most Marvel movies not produced by the MCU. So like, for example, like I said, he did Daredevil, he did the Ang Lee Hulk, the Punisher, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and also the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Obviously, he had a hand in the MCU Spider-Man movies because those were like joint efforts, and he worked on the Spider-Verse movies, but then he's also been involved in Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Morbius, and the upcoming Kraven the Hunter movie, which I know those movies really don't appeal to a lot of people because it's like, man, you're really just trying to spite Marvel and be like, well, fuck you. We're going to build our own Spider-Verse and it's going to be excellent, but it's just consistently not very good. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we'll have to see how this develops. It doesn't hurt that, what's the name of the director again that's going to be involved in this?
Wes Ball.
The trailer for that new Planet of the Apes movie came out just this past week, and it looks pretty good. I mean, not a bad first impression. And I know that he did those Maze Runner movies as well, but I don't have any opinion on those. We'll see how this turns out.
I would say, based on Maze Runner, I could see him making like a fun, like, you know, not a kid-friendly movie, but like a middle-aged, teen-centric, like, I like Maze Runner. I thought the first movie was really fun, really good.
Hmm.
It's just like a young adult. I mean, you think of like Hunger Games. It's a similar feel to that.
Sure.
Um, so you could do that. I just don't. Yeah, for me, it's just like what's the direction and what's the story? Because when you think on the Mario movie, which is the most successful movie this year, um, and I think it's like good, but it's like fine. Like the movie's
Hmm.
fine, but it's like okay, they really did a lot of like, hey, do you know about Mario? It's all in there. And the animation is beautiful. Story's like whatever, it's fine. It's a kid's movie. So I'm like, what kind of tone and what kind of vibe are you going for with the Legend of Zelda? Like, what Zelda are we gonna like make this based off of? Like, there's a lot of questions there. I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine. At worst, it'll be fine and it'll still make a lot of money. But it's like, what are you aiming for? Is my big question.
We definitely, at some point in the future, have to do an episode of the podcast where we fan cast who we think would be good in these roles. Because a whole lot of people on Twitter being like, oh, Timothée Charla, whatever his name is, and what's his face from Uncharted and Spider-Man should be in it. And like, yeah, for sure. But I feel like we can come up with more creative answers. I will say, like, it feels like a kind of gulf has been left by the Lord of the Rings movies and the amount of time that has passed in sim, and also the failure of the Hobbit movies to really kind of capture the imagination. I feel like there is definitely room for this movie to kind of like become a new benchmark within the kind of high fantasy genre, but again, just a whole lot of unknowns. And as Shigeru Miyamoto himself said when he tweeted out about this, like, we are quite a few years away from this, so we will have to wait and see.
Yeah, you'll know when he knows. Very cool. I'm interested. I think you could be fun at the worst. We're gonna go ahead and move on to playtime. We're gonna talk about things that we've played. That's why we call it playtime.
Yes.
Alex, you've started in platinum to finish stuff. What's this all about, you busy bee?
Oh man, I had just one hell of a busy Saturday to start the day off. Beat Super Mario Wonder. Just really had a fantastic time with that game. Love like all the kind of wonders that you can activate in that game. Love the way that the kind of final few levels of that game kind of bring everything together and reference all the crazy, wacky levels you had along the way. I would say the single favorite thing, my single favorite thing in Super Mario Wonder, however, is the way that they implemented multiplayer for when you're playing the game single player. I don't know to what extent you kind of paid attention to like a lot of the kind of like videos and overviews of the game leading up to its release, but basically the way that it works in the game is if you're playing single player, you can turn on ghosts for other players that are playing concurrently to you. And these other players that are playing concurrently to you can, as you play, reveal to you, oh, hey, I can see that player over there is standing on seemingly midair. That must mean that there must be an invisible platform underneath them. And you can kind of use the own ways in which they're playing through levels to kind of reference secrets and hidden coins and hidden whatnots that you otherwise would have not found. On top of that, when you die, your ghost can pop up, and if it interacts with another player or another standee that they left behind, which is like a little item they can leave behind in levels, you can instantly revive yourself. And so it's just, it makes the process of completing these levels feel like that much more collaborative than it previously felt before. And I really kind of appreciate it for that. The game also has these individual levels every now and then where the whole premise of them is you're kind of deposited into a seemingly empty room, and you kind of have to like figure it out, kind of like an escape room. Like how do I get out of this place? Where are all of its secrets located? And those levels are always fun because all of the ghosts of the other players that are playing through the escape level can be seen as well. And so it's sort of this game of like, can we collaboratively figure out how to get through this level? Oh, I see those ghost players are pushing up against that column over there. I must have to push it as well. It's one of those things where it reminded me a lot of how in Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U, that game had like a Captain Toad level every so often in it. And those Captain Toad levels were so successful that they eventually spun those out into a game that was entirely just those Captain Toad levels called Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. And I kind of felt very similarly about these escape room levels in Mario Wonder of like, this is like such a good idea, such a brilliant idea of having players collaboratively over the internet try to solve these levels that like, I feel like Nintendo could even spin these levels out into like their own game. But time remains to be seen whether we will ever get anything like that. We'll say, don't love how easy so many of the boss battles were in Super Mario Wonder. With the exception of the last boss battle, I thought a lot of the kind of mid boss battles were not that impressive. But again, I feel like the package really came together in the end. And now that I'm in the post game, I'm really happy I did not go out of my way to clean up all the levels to 100% completion during my first playthrough, because I have a lot of levels left to clean up, and I'm like really excited and really looking forward to doing so.
Got a question. Two questions.
Yes.
How long did it take you to finish? Not 100%, obviously, but to finish
Not long at all, actually. I mean, it's tough because like I played it over the span of like 5 nights, but I would say probably like 10, 12 hours maximum. Not that long at all.
Gotcha. And then, so we played New Super Mario Brothers U as a barf game, a backlog game that we reviewed. Yes. And obviously you've played a lot of basically all of the Mario 2D games and 3D, right? I mean, you played all the Mario games. Is this, so basically what I've been hearing is that it's like, yeah, it's similar to those, but it's very, like you're saying, it's like really creative. Because, like, again, we talk about in New Super Mario Brothers U, there was like the Starry Night level, and then that was really it. And then everything else was pretty much normal fare. Is there actually, do you feel like there's a lot of creativity talking about the escape rooms and all the other stuff?
100%. It definitely does live up to that particular praise that it's receiving, for sure.
Cool. Because that's the thing. It's like, yeah, if everything is actually really cool and different, then they did the thing that they should have done. But they did it now, which is good.
Yeah. I tweeted out after I beat it, like, I still have a lot of nostalgia for Super Mario World. That might still be my personal favorite 2D Mario game, but Mario Wonder is really special. Much better than any of the other prior 2D Mario games from the past couple of decades.
All those new Super Mario games that no one likes, really, which is weird. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
But that's good that they got back on track. Continue.
And so I completed that in the morning. Middle of the day, went out, caught some Pokemons and Pokemon Go, got myself a big old shiny Garchomp from a raid. And then in the evening, I was like, man, I have a couple more levels to complete in Lies of P before I platinum that game. I wonder if I can pull it off. And ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to announce that your boy, thanks to pulling in some real late night hours last night, is the proud owner of the Lies of P Platinum Trophy. Let me tell you guys, this was a tough ass platinum. I had to play through this game 3 times, and on the second and third time, I had to pull out all the stops so I could complete its optional final boss. Although I will say, third time around, the final kind of like true optional boss of the game, not hard at all. I'll try to kind of like condense this as much as possible, because this is probably going to just sound like nonsense to people that haven't played the game. But so like the true final boss is like this crazy ass, super fast, super hard hitting puppet that can just hit you from all directions and really do a number on you. First time I played through the game, my first playthrough, I was like, I can't do this. I can't beat this guy. And I basically kind of gave up before the getting was good and started my second playthrough. Second time around, looked up a lot of strategies online. They all recommended do this trick where basically you hold up this like one shield ability that you have and like basically strike while you have your shield up. It's a very kind of like slow ability. You can't do a lot of damage with it per second, but it is a kind of consistent way to get damage in while defending yourself. The thing is holding the shield up does use a fair bit of energy itself. And so you still have to take time to like remain unshielded and walk around and properly replenish your kind of resources. And then on top of that, the enemy also has certain attacks called rage attacks, where it glows red, where when it hits you with a rage attack, it will hit you even if you're shielded. You are only able to dodge out of the way, which can be very kind of challenging. Parry. Right, or parry. The thing is once you begin your third playthrough of Lies of P via like New Game Plus, restart the game all over again, the game gives you the option to turn on an ability that makes it so that you can also block those normally unblockable attacks. And basically that kind of completely trivializes the final true boss of the game. It doesn't trivialize all the other bosses, because all the other bosses function differently. There are some bosses that like don't necessarily inflict a lot of damage, but they do make you fall over, for example. And so that strategy doesn't necessarily work for them. But for the final boss, this strategy that I kind of developed to defeat it the last time around worked so well that I literally beat it on my second try. So, I mean, it is one of those things where it's like, I do kind of wish that the true final boss of the game, last thing I did before I got the platinum, was like a real challenge. But then again, the fact that I was able to cheese it so easily, I see that as indicative of just like the level of experience and knowledge that I gained with this game, that I was able to kind of like synthesize all of that into a one perfect boss battle.
Yeah, but you got good. Yeah, I got a question for you.
I got good. That's the best way of putting it.
So I know you like this game a lot. Obviously, you platinumed it. Looking back now, how upset? Well, I'm upset. How much do you feel you betrayed me by not actually playing through Elden Ring? Because last year for Game of the Year, it was like, obviously it was Elden Ring and God of War. And then Chad's like, well, I'm a baby gamer, so I can't play Elden Ring. And you played a little bit of it, but you didn't finish it. So if you would have finished it, you would have agreed with me it was the Game of the Year. So everything would have been different. But now that you're Liza P. Master, maybe you should have played Elden Ring. That's all I'm saying.
See, I don't feel like I betrayed you, because Elden Ring, I think, was both, really elevated as an experience, but I think also hamstrung a little bit by just how kind of open-ended it was. Lies of P, by comparison, is like a much more linear experience. It like signposts much more obviously where it is that you need to go and what it is that you need to do. Like, if I felt like when I played Elden Ring last year, I gave it as much effort as I gave Lies of P, and I ultimately fell off of it just because I got overwhelmed. It's not because I didn't decide to get good or commit or anything like that. That's just
no. You just wanted to break my heart. That's all it was, and I agree with Chad with his. I mean, there's
opinions. A little bit of that too, but anyways,
his awful bit. No, that's true though. How long was your platinum for Lies of P? Was probably shorter than an Elden Ring run.
Yeah, fuck. Because the game does have like an in-game clock that I could go and check right now. I don't know. I'd love to go and check it.
I'm sure it's on how long to beat. There's got to be like a completionist.
But also, like, I definitely let me check the PS app real quick, because I bet the PS app actually has the amount of time. Oh, here we go. Perfect. 109 hours. 109 hours. Now, I will say, I spent more time with the game than I necessarily needed to, because all the trophy guides are like, if you kind of want to platinum this game, you basically only need to play through the game 2 times. I played through the game 3 times because, as previously discussed, I wasn't able to seal the deal and beat the true final boss on my first attempt. Basically, the idea is, the way that all these guides go is like, all right, once you get to the end of your first run, make a save before you beat the true final boss, then lose to the true final boss and get that ending, then reload your save, then beat the true final boss and then get that ending, clean up anything that you need to do post-game, start your new game plus, beat that playthrough, and you're done. Again, I didn't want to do that, and so I went the long way around of doing three playthroughs, but I mean, it still would have been quite a bit of time. Like, I'd have to imagine that. I mean, it's tough, because it's like I probably spent maybe 15 hours on like my final playthrough of the game, but anyways.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, the amount of time, the extra time that I spent on this game that I didn't necessarily need to have spent on this game to platinum it was time that I needed to, get good enough to be able to platinum it in the first place. So it is kind of a chicken or the egg situation.
I mean, that's me, my Elden Ring, because I think that first run I did was like 130 hours. That's because I did everything, beat every boss, every dungeon. So on my next playthrough, like, I got to like the third boss and it took me like 3 hours. Like, I was just blazing through everything. So I got you. But the last thing you did is also exciting. Ooh boy, look at this. I'm looking at a list. Other people aren't. So you got to tell them what happened.
I just started Alan Wake 2. Emphasis on the just started part. I'm only 2 chapters into the game. Saga, the first character that I've begun the game as, just met up with a certain character of particular interest, and I'll leave it at that. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with the game so far. I'm loving the vibe. The process of like going back and forth between the game and Saga's sort of mind palace where she's assembling the mystery together is a lot of fun. gotta say, it's going to be really, really hard to go back to the original Alan Wake now after playing this game, just because of how much better this game is. When I beat the original Alan Wake like a month and a half ago, I initially was thinking, oh man, I had a lot of fun with this game. This game actually surprised me how much I enjoyed it. I should probably platinum it before the kind of window to do so escapes me. And now I feel like that window has fully escaped me, because now that I've played this game, like, it is going to be tough to go back to that game. But I guess that's the price to pay for playing a game that is as good so far as Alan Wake 2.
Yeah, it's just Alan Wake 2 is good, and Alan Wake 1 is 13 years old. It is hard to go back to things that old. So
that is true.
Very cool. I think I'll have to double check it. I'll double check about it in the show, but I'm pretty sure that based on our barf polls, so for November, December, instead of doing backlog game, we have people vote on games we need to play for Game of the Year. I'm pretty sure, I'll double check it. I know for sure Chad is playing Alan Wake 2 as part of that. I think the vote also had me playing Alan Wake 2. So I'll double check that.
We should check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either Alan Wake or Sea of Stars, which I might just do both. But yeah, very cool. Awesome. So for me, besides watching Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 until 3 in the morning, I started Thirsty Suitors, which was a little indie game from Annapurna. It is you're a South Asian woman, and it's basically Scott Pilgrim, where you're like going to your old hometown and you have to battle all your exes. It's a little turn-based game. You do some cooking stuff. You do skateboarding. It's real, like, it's one of those kind of vibes. It reminds me a little bit of Venba, but if Venba was like a cartoon and not just like talking about real life stuff. If they was like over the top, I see some similarities there. I only got like an hour or so into it, but it's pretty fun. It's Scott Pilgrim. If Scott Pilgrim was a woman, basically.
Okay. Real quick before you move on to the next game, over on patreon.com/respawn where you can vote in our barf polls. Sea of Stars and Alan Wake 2 were both tied at 40% of the vote each. But over on Twitter, Alan Wake 2 managed to pull ahead with 50% of the vote there. So mathematically, you are playing Alan Wake 2.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I just thank you for double checking. So yeah, I'll definitely be playing Alan Wake 2. I believe it's also Chad's winner, but I think I'll probably have time for Sea of Stars. We'll see. All I have to play is Alan Wake 2. Outside of that, you can't tell me what to do. So very good. We'll all be playing that. And the last thing was Baldur's Gate 3. I'm in the middle of Act 3. I'm getting near the end of the game. I'm doing all the stuff. All the reveals are happening. Man, that game's good. Holy shit. But yeah, having fun with that. Not much. I didn't really play a lot. I did just watch a lot of Spider-Man. Like an idiot. All right, moving on to our quest log. That's where we talk about the other stories that happen. The next best-selling game of all time is getting shown off soon. From Ryan Dinsdale at IGN.com. Rockstar Games has announced it will finally debut its highly anticipated GTA 6 reveal trailer in December of 2023. Rockstar didn't share a full reveal for the game, but did say that it was, quote, very excited to finally debut GTA 6. We are very excited to let you know that in early December, we will release the first trailer for the next Grand Theft Auto. We look forward to many years of sharing these experiences with all of you. That is from Rockstar's Twitter. Thanks to the incredible support of our players worldwide, we've had the opportunity to create games we're truly passionate about. Without you, none of this would be possible. We are so grateful to all of you for sharing this journey with us, Rockstar added. So, the big one, it's coming, trailer. I have a story about this, because I mean, it's just like the news stories that is a thing that's happening. So when I worked at GameStop, this story will give it away. I would, people who've ever worked there, you've got to ask people for pre-orders. You got to when people upsell you at GameStop, it's because they literally have to. Like the management's like, you have to do this. Believe me, I didn't want to do it. I didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
But they said like, you're supposed to do this. And every time I would ask people, so you would see someone, you're like, all right, this guy's a hardcore gamer. They're in here buying Tales in Symphonia HD and whatever, these weirdos, right? But so many people are like, I'm just coming here to buy 2K. I'm coming here to buy Madden. And they did not, I'm not kidding, maybe 50 people who are like, I don't pre-order games, but whenever they talk about GTA 5, I will come pre-order that video game. Like, that is the thing that, like, when that trailer came out and that news came out, then people were actually like, oh yeah, I'll do that. Because this is the only thing that a mass majority of human beings only care about playing Grand Theft Auto and Madden every year. So it's just gonna be funny when this trailer comes up. People are like, oh shit, that's out now, and they'll go fucking do whatever they got. Probably not pre-order anymore because that was 12 years ago. But it's just very funny that was the only thing that moved the needle for like a vast majority of people.
I will say, I don't have too much else to say. In the lead up to this game's release, a lot of people have speculated, are they going to call it Grand Theft Auto 6 with like the Roman numerals like V and I? Are they going to do Grand Theft Auto 6, but then lead it into saying Vice City? Because leaks and rumors have suggested that it may or may not take place in a certain Florida-inspired Miami-esque city. I would love it. And I know it's not going to happen, but I would love it if this game was revealed to be called something completely different. Like if it's called like Far Cry 6 Revengeance or whatever.
Far Cry 6 Revengeance. That'd be wild. Another random funny story about when I worked at GameStop. Grand Theft Auto 4, people would literally, not a lot of people, you get a couple people come there, like, hey, what's that? You guys had that GTA IV? GTA IV, huh? We're just not going to say within the normal. We're not going to, you know what, sir? Here it is. There you go. So it was very funny that people said the Roman numeral instead of knowing it was a number.
Yeah. Some people didn't pass high school, unfortunately. Yeah. No. That is, looking forward to this.
Very cool.
Looking forward to this.
Definitely not going to be at Game Awards. 0% chance.
Sadly.
No.
Sadly.
They do it.
I would not. I'll say this right here. I'll get a little bit spicy. I would not be surprised if, while the main GTA 6 reveal will not be at Game Awards, I would not be surprised if we get a fun little trailer at the Game Awards that reveals a particular fun thing about GTA 6. Kind of like, and this is a weird comparison, but stick with me on this. Several months prior to the 2014 Game Awards, or maybe it was the 2013 Game Awards, doesn't matter. Nintendo revealed, hey, we got a new Donkey Kong game coming along. It's Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. And at the Game Awards, they revealed, hey, guess what? Cranky Kong is coming to Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. He's going to be one of your playable characters in that game. And I think I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility that we could get a similarly small reveal at the Game Awards of an aspect of Grand Theft Auto 6 that will still make people be like, oh, that's pretty cool.
No, neat. Or it could be like, hey, Jeff Keighley would be happy to get it. Be like, hey, a trailer starts up and it just has a Rockstar logo and it's like, watch this fucking basketball or football game for the actual trailer. And that's what he gets. I wouldn't be shocked at that either.
Matt, what if they reveal Goat Simulator 4, but it starts like a Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer, like they did for that one Goat Simulator game?
If they were smart, they would do that. That would be amazing. All right. Next up, new sexy Steam Deck from Taylor Lyles at IGN.com. Valve has announced the next iteration of the Steam Deck. Not Steam Deck 2, by the way, just a little an update. With the release date set for November 16th. That's later this week. The Steam Deck OLED will feature an enhanced OLED display, better audio, and a handful of quality of life improvements. It will also feature what looks to be a big boost in battery life, with Valve claiming an estimated 30 to 50% improvement over the launch version. Steam Deck OLED model will be available in two storage configurations, 512 gigabytes and 1 terabyte, which will cost $550 and $650 respectively. While the new OLED screen offers an increased 90 Hz refresh rate, it still outputs at a native 1280 by 800. The Steam Deck OLED also includes a Wi-Fi 6E module that allows up to 3 times faster download speeds or better performance when playing games online. This was pretty cool when they were just like, hey, by the way, there's a new model coming out next week. You fucking go enjoy that. And again, I like the idea of a Steam Deck. I don't really play games portable, so it doesn't make sense to me. But, even like with the Switch OLED, I'm like, OLED portables are fucking sexy. So I'm not against it.
Yeah, I mean, looks cool. No interest myself in picking it up, but, shout out to all you who want to get it.
Do you do anything with your PC besides when you were maybe playing games that weren't natively made by Nintendo at a certain point?
Allegedly. Yeah, I don't really do much with my PC. Most of my time spent on PC is like tinkering in OBS and doing stuff of that nature. Don't really do a lot of gaming there. Yeah,
doing work. I've enjoyed my time. I've always thought like, man, a Steam Deck would make sense because I have a Steam account, I got a lot of games, but I'm just like, I can't quantify spending that much money for a portable device when I don't use portable devices. But they always entice me. I'm like, that would be cool. But no, that's cool. I will say that the special edition one looks pretty cool. It's like black and red. Or no, it's like translucent and gray and red on it. It's pretty cool.
Ooh.
All right. And last for the day, small pivot for PlayStation from Andy Robinson at VG. Don't delete that.
Oh, whoops. Did you not want me to delete that?
I never.
It's back.
So just for everyone who knows, a couple weeks ago on a segment, I had Alex in chat.
This is from that one segment where I did where we decided on your picks for the, what's it called? Fantasy Critic
Yeah, we
League.
did a fantasy draft.
Okay, that's right. I was like, I saw all these random names and I was like, is that something that I put there at some point that I forgot about? I should probably delete it to clean this up. I've forgotten about that.
We're here now, so it's fine. Here's what it is that, yeah, I never put it into Fantasy Critic just because like it was giving me problems and I had to like invite someone to do it. It was a pain in the ass. I will go ahead and say, we're here, we'll do it. Chad's not here. He can cry at home when he listens to the audio. Alex chose Mario Wonder, Persona 5 Tactica, and Jusant. Now, Persona 5 Tactica isn't out yet, but just based on Mario Wonder and Jusant, I think you're going to beat Chad. His games were Wizard with a Gun, WarioWare, Move It, and RoboCop, which all did fine in reviews. And you have one game which is actually like over a 90. I think by default you win.
Yay.
So you can delete it now if you'd like to. You won our little exercise. That's not even with, I think even without Persona 5, you win. Which is funny because Chad has done 2 fantasy leagues this year. One against me and one against you. He's lost both of them. Just a fun thing to point out. Get good, Chad. All right. On to our last story. Small pivot for PlayStation from Andy Robinson, VGC. SIE has halved the number of live service games it plans to release over the next few years. It has been confirmed. Earlier this year, PlayStation management team confirmed that it had partnered with Destiny Studio Bungie for a rigorous portfolio review process. According to press reports, this has led to some projects being scaled back. We are reviewing this. We are trying as much as possible to ensure these games are enjoyed and liked by gamers for a long time. Of the 12 titles, 6 titles will be released by fiscal year 25. That's our current plan. As for the remaining 6 titles, we are still working on that. So,
what a surprise.
Wow. You know what? I will say, again, I don't have a problem with games of service. I don't have a problem with multiplayer games. I think going all in and trying to make 12 before any of them come out does seem silly, not knowing how it's going to work. I think scaling back, like, all right, let's focus on the ones that we have, focus on the ones that Bungie said is worth our time, and then from there, see how it goes, because that they were going all in. I'm like, that seems like a thing you should have done 6 years ago and not right now. So, yeah, you probably weren't going to play any of these, were you? I'm still not interested in any of them.
No, I would have definitely checked out Marathon if people said it was good, because I did play a little bit of Bungie back in the day, of Destiny back in the day. Played a little bit of other Bungie games too, but Destiny I had fun with. I just found there were a lot of systems and things to keep track of, and so I definitely would have given Marathon a shot if it was, also that kind of a premium experience. And I mean, Marathon is still coming out, so I should be saying I will give it a shot. Other than that, though, honestly, no, not really.
Yeah, people who have done more work than me might have done this and figured out what the 6 are. So we know Last of Us multiplayer, which is like not being worked on, is being worked on, whatever. Fair Games, Concord.
The Horizon Monster Hunter multiplayer, game, possibly, if that is. We don't even know if that is a free-to-play games as a service game, but you would assume so.
In Marathon. I think, again, if they're free-to-play, maybe I'll check them out, but like asking me to spend...
There's also the fantasy game from Polyphony, the studio that does the
Gran Turismo,
the VR games. I got Polyphony was the wrong name. It's the studio that did the VR gangster games set in London's underground.
London Studio
London. I think. Yeah. Okay. They were working on a fantasy game. They've talked about that, I think.
Yeah. Again, I'm willing to give it a try, but ask me to spend $70 for extraction shooter. Might be a tougher sell, but focus, make them good, and then if reviews are good, I'm willing to check it out. That's all the stories for today. It was actually surprisingly like a lot of big important news stuff happened this week. It was pretty cool because it hasn't been that way lately. But moving on to that, now that we're done with that stuff, all right, my segment and your game on Game Show are the same thing. So we're just going to move on to the Game On Game Show segment from Adam this week. I guess, do you want to go ahead and talk about what you want to do with this?
Yeah. So real quick. Normally this would be a week where we would have TMI with NPD. This specifically would have been TMI with NPD for the year 2006, but I like to do that segment when we have both Chad and Adam here, or at least two people, so that they can both guess and we can, crown a winner at the end. Chad is not here. He's currently on a plane going somewhere. So that will be next week if everything works out. In place of that, because tomorrow the Game Awards nominees are going to be revealed to the world for this year's Game Awards show, I figured it would be fun to predict what we think the nominees will be in some of the categories. Not all of them, because there are definitely some categories in the Game Awards I don't have a whole lot to say about. I figured, at least in my case, it would be fun to guess the nominees for Best Adaptation, Best Role-Playing Game, Best Action Adventure Game, Best Indie Game, Best Performance in a Game, Best Narrative in a Game, Best Game Direction, and Game of the Year. And I know, Adam, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. You also went and drafted up some predictions, but for not as many categories.
Yeah, no, I've got some ideas for, especially the big one I do for sure. And the great thing about this is when the podcast comes out, you can go back and check our work and see if we know what we're talking about or not.
Yeah.
It's always fun to predict.
The way that we'll make this work is if I come across a category that we've both made our predictions for, we'll just list them off. If it's just one I made, you can chime in and say whether or not you agree or disagree with some of my nominations. So let's go to the top of the list. Best Adaptation. I will say all the other categories that I filled out nominations for, like there were like a few titles I had to debate between. This one, there were literally just 5 that I could come up with. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's the nomination list. It is The Last of Us, the HBO series, the Super Mario Brothers movie, the Gran Turismo movie, the Twisted Metal movie, and the Twisted Metal TV show starring Jason Mantzoukas, and the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Oh. I will say, when I kind of came up with this initial short list, I was like, man, feels like there haven't been that many video game movies and TV shows this year, even though all of those movies or TV shows left an impression to some degree. And I actually looked up an article from I think it was Games Radar from the beginning of the year that was like all the potential video game TV shows and movies we could get this year. And there were like a ton of things on that list. It's like, yeah, we should have gotten that this year, but like it didn't materialize. Like the Fallout series, which is coming, is on its way, but taking its time.
So I've got a couple things to make out your list. I don't know if there's 6 every category or just depends on the category. There was a Castlevania series that came out this year on Netflix.
That's right.
And there was also the Laserhawk. Captain Laserhawk, which is apparently just like Ubisoft Battle Royale, the TV show, which apparently was also interesting. I'm just going to say Castlevania. I haven't watched either one of them, but I would just say Castlevania.
If we were to replace one
that will make your 6
on this list with Castlevania, but isn't it 5 for non-Game of the Year categories?
You might be right. I don't know. So if you're right,
because I'm pretty certain that it's 5 for every category, but Game of the Year, which is 6.
Okay, well then you're good then. What was your? You named movies and TV shows that were big. I think that would go over, unless it's like an Arcane. I don't think that anyone treated. I think people like that Castlevania. I don't think anyone's like, this is the greatest thing ever. I will say winner's obviously probably going to be Last of Us because it's an HBO show. But Five Nights at Freddy's, no slouch. I will say that is a very good adaptation of what that is.
See, I would have said maybe we should replace Five Nights at Freddy's with Castlevania. But if you're saying that one was actually pretty good, then I feel like maybe replace Gran Turismo with Castlevania.
That was my thing, is that like you maybe replace Gran Turismo because that one seems to be on the lowest on the list, but it's an actually theatrically released movie, so maybe that gets more merit because I would think Castlevania's better, but
I'll put Gran Turismo / Castlevania.
There we go.
I know that's kind of against the rules, but I mean, we get to make up the rules, so
yeah. Last of Us wins that for sure, though, without a doubt.
Yeah. All right. Best role-playing games. So this is one of those categories where I definitely had to debate over my mind what I wanted to put on this list of nominations, kill a few babies here and there.
Kill babies?
And I do want to mention, and this is something I did with all these lists of nominations, is I listed the games in order of the time of the year in which they released. So starting at the top, Fire Emblem Engage, Final Fantasy 16, Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield, and Lies of P. So Fire Emblem Engage, I recognize that's probably the one game on the list that's like, feels a little bit most out of sorts with the games around it. I mean, I don't think that this game has necessarily a great chance of winning anything at the award show, but I do feel like we tend to underestimate the amount of fervor that Nintendo fans have for Nintendo RPGs, lest we forget last year at the Game Awards, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was one of the nominees for Game of the Years there. And so I feel like Fire Emblem Engage has a similar shot of weaseling into this category, because I know there were a lot of people when that game came out that were like, this game is actually really good. And there were a lot of people that were specifically like, this game is giving me what I want out of the Fire Emblem series that Fire Emblem Three Houses did not give me a couple of years prior. And yeah, Final Fantasy 16, Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield, and Lies of P, I feel like are all pretty self-explanatory. Lies of P, I mean, my bias is showing a little bit with that one, but real good game.
So here's the thing, that this category is going to be a bloodbath, right? Because it's like, what's an RPG and not? Here's a couple big games that you did not put on your list, but I think that could get in over some of those. Diablo 4.
Yeah, Diablo 4, I mean, I had a lot of fun with Diablo 4. It's definitely going to be on like my personal favorite games of the year list, but like it feels like the conversation has fallen off a little bit from that game.
Yeah.
But
there's Sea of Stars, which I definitely think gets in on that list for sure. I think if anywhere that's getting, Sea of Stars is getting in on this one. You also have Phantom Liberty, which is like I mean, it's like a 92 on Metacritic, so people obviously like that, and that's where you would put it, is an RPG. On top of there was one more that I saw on here. I typed in best RPGs, and they have Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, I wouldn't really. I mean, that game, like,
feels
so
more
many
action. Is there an action category?
So many action. There is action and action adventure, but I just don't know one of action adventure. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely. I'd be willing to put Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty in here somewhere. Would you put it over Starfield?
No, I think Starfield gets in.
Okay,
I think it's like number 3 or 4 on the vote list.
So if we have Fire Emblem Engage, Final Fantasy, Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield, and Lies of P, like which one would you take off then?
I would say, again, I'm going based on the voters, and I don't think that Lies of P makes it in this category. I think they put that in action game. So I think Lies of P doesn't go in, and they put in Cyberpunk, or they put in Sea of Stars. But I definitely think Fire Emblem stays, and then all the other ones are like gimmies. Of course, these are making it in.
I'll put Phantom Liberty as the slash for Lies of P.
Okay.
All right.
Very
Best action adventure game. And again, this is in the order of when these games released during the year. Dead Space, Resident Evil 4, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Spider-Man 2, and Alan Wake 2.
Very good. I would say that Dead Space is the one that doesn't get in here, and they put in Survivor instead. Because I think if you're going to do a horror remake, people like Resident Evil. It seems like people like RE4 remake. I mean, Dead Space is good. All these games are good. Like, this is a crazy year. I feel like people cared more about RE remake than they did Dead Space remake. So because they were like, well, we got to put Star Wars in here somewhere because that game was cool. So I feel like that would go in over the Dead Space remake, which I don't know. I'm just me guessing what people who vote on these would think.
Yeah, I mean, I can also see Jedi Survivor weaseling in there on the basis of the fact that it just came out in the year a little bit more recently. When you release a game all the way back in January, you risk having it get forgotten about, even though I don't feel like Dead Space is utterly forgotten about. All right. Best indie. I put down Dredge, Cassette Beasts, Dave the Diver, Sea of Stars, and Cocoon. I just want to touch very quickly in assembling together this list. I try to stick to indie games that really kind of like exemplify the spirit of what is an indie game. I didn't really want to be like, well, technically Baldur's Gate 3 is an indie game because it's published independently, even though I know some people will debate me on that. Cassette Beasts, even though I don't think that has a great chance of winning it, I did put that in there because that game has had a fair bit of momentum behind it. Are you familiar with Cassette Beasts?
Yep. I tried it out for a little bit when it came out. I told you about it, and you were like, I'm not interested. It's not real Pokemon. Yeah. We talked about it on this show.
Yeah. Anyways, I feel like I still like have people within my circles that like still do talk about that game. And so I feel like on that basis alone, I feel like it has a shot, at least at a nomination.
Okay. So give me your 5 one more time, because I think I've got only one that I would probably switch it out on.
Dredge, Cassette Beasts, Dave the Diver, Sea of Stars, and Cocoon.
So, unrelated to this, because they're different awards, but they're similar, that the Golden Joystick Awards just happened this past weekend, which is another video game. I think it's like British gaming media people, or European, not British. And they had in their category, similar to what you said, but instead of Cassette Beast, they had Pizza Tower, which is a game that people were horny for at the beginning of the year.
No joke. When I was assembling this list, it was literally between Pizza Tower and Cassette Beasts.
So I put a slash there.
Yeah, the reason why I went with Cassette Beasts is because I just thought, like, between a game that is trying to evoke Wario Land and a game that is trying to evoke Pokemon, I feel like more people will have played the Pokemon-like as opposed to the Wario Land-like. That was sort of my reasoning.
Yeah, I put a slash there,
but
because that was a big. That's true, but I do think that Pizza Tower is such a big Twitch thing, or like a social media thing for a little bit. Maybe I don't know. I think regardless, it goes to Sea of Star or Dredge. I think those are the two that people are into this year. But I do think that's a good list.
All right, moving on to best performance in a video game. I put down Ben Starr as Clive Rosenfield in Final Fantasy XVI. Neil Newbon, I don't know if that's how his name's pronounced, as Astarion. Again, don't know if that's how it's pronounced either.
No, you're getting close. 3. You're getting close.
Idris Elba as Solomon Reed in Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. Melanie Libbard as Saga in Alan Wake 2. And Matthew Peretta as Alan Wake in Alan Wake 2.
Good. I definitely think the Ben Starr, obviously, everyone's loving him. He also just won the Golden Joystick. The second guy, he just won for Best Supporting Actor. Idris Elba, because they like to. Well, first of all, he's very good, but also they like to. There's always a celebrity who gets in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's also very good. And what were your last two? They were from Alan Wake 2.
Yeah, the actors that play Saga and Alan Wake in Alan Wake 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think Matthew Peretta, who plays Alan Wake, like, I feel like he's probably the longest shot on this list, but I will say, like, the guy has been doing a lot of work over the years. He was, I want to say that he was the, like, scientist in Control that, like, basically was, like, the head scientist of the organization that was, like, telling you about the way that all these, like, crazy things within the bureau worked, and was, like, really, like, fascinated and kind of excited to tell you about that stuff. Like, that was a great performance there, and I can see maybe this year, maybe another year, people being like, you've had, like, a career of really great roles and we want to reward you for it, but we will see.
I like the list. I have 3 names. Just put them underneath it. Asterisk. Sure. It doesn't matter. I don't remember his name, but he's the guy from Game of Thrones who was in Diablo and Final Fantasy. I would say for Diablo, maybe, I don't know. What is he? Is he Sid in Final Fantasy? I don't fucking play Final Fantasy.
He's I'm trying to remember what's his name. He's like the guy that was part of the Haradrim, who is now like a guy who's like real old, and he's like trying to rally the troops in like humanity's darkest hour. My thing about that role is I really like that guy too, but I feel like a lot of people that played Diablo 4 were just like, oh, story stuff, skip.
Maybe so.
Didn't really bother.
That's why I put an asterisk. Next, I would say Cameron Monaghan from Jedi. Again, celebrity. People like him. Yeah. And then the last one would be Nazi Jeter, Miles from Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. All good roles. I feel like Monaghan, who played Cal Kestis, I feel like, oh yeah, that's right. They never nominated him for anything first time around because that game came out during that like liminal space after the Game Awards.
It's like the week after all the votes have to be in,
Right.
so the whole game just got snubbed.
I was about to say, like, I don't feel like they would nominate him again, but if they never nominated him the first time around, maybe he does have a shot. So who knows?
Those are just asterisk names, because again, with that, who knows? But I feel like Ben Starr's the favorite for sure.
And he's also like, I feel like he's done the most press of any of the actors or actresses.
That's what it is. He's out there being like, "Yo, I did the voice acting for Final Fantasy 16."
Yeah.
So yeah.
Best narrative I have put down: Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Final Fantasy 16, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Spider-Man 2, and Alan Wake 2. Now, I do want to say something. I know you're probably looking at this shortlist thinking, man, there is a Baldur's Gate 3 sized hole that is missing on this list. As somebody who's not played this game and has not really read up a whole lot about the story of this game, my thing is going off of what I've seen of this game on social media, it seems like the story is almost not like an afterthought, but really not where people's attentions are focused with this game. And so I want you, as someone who's really getting into the thick of this game story, to sell me on it and tell me why I should put it on this short list.
I will say, well, I think it's a good story. I think where that game is so ambitious, just with choice mattering and like so many permutations of what can actually happen, I think it's like, oh yeah, like voters will be like, oh, that's like the game that's like really cool and has a cool, fantasy story, but you can make your own. And I feel like that's gonna influence people to be like, yes, this is a game. This is a game that has 75 hours of cutscenes, and then you can do whatever you want. I think that gets on. What were your other ones?
Jedi Survivor, Final Fantasy, Cyberpunk, Phantom Liberty, Spider-Man 2, and Alan Wake 2.
So I think Alan Wake 2 is a lock. I think Baldur's Gate 3 probably over Star Wars.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think, is there anything we're leaving out that was also maybe, so I haven't played it yet, obviously, but isn't Space for the Unbound like that indie game that everyone's like, it makes you cry?
Yeah, I forgot about that one. I put it on my short list of games to play, but people didn't vote for it.
I feel like there's going to be a make me cry indie that gets in over like a Final Fantasy 16 or a Jedi. I feel like there's going to be an indie that makes you cry, and I think Alan Wake 2 and Baldur's Gate are also locks. I mean, Alan Wake 2 especially because it's like that game is like we want to tell weird ass stories with a writer, and that's what that game is. I think that gets in.
All right, here we go. The penultimate category, Best Game Direction. I went with Dead Space, Hi-Fi Rush, Final Fantasy 16, Baldur's Gate 3, and Alan Wake 2. Dead Space, like, I feel like that's somewhat self-explanatory with that game being the whole, we're never going to like cut to a cutscene. It's always going to be behind the back, and we're going to display your health and HUD stuff on your rig, which of course was, emblematic of the original games in that series. Hi-Fi Rush, I think this one finally gets some representation in here just because it is like the one game of like all the nominees this year that's like very distinctly different looking. It has a very, distinctive cartoonish art style. Final Fantasy 16, I mean, their commitment to telling like this grand Game of Thrones-esque story, I think definitely gets at points in that regard. Baldur's Gate 3, of course, and then Alan Wake 2 being the like, mishmash of genres and media, switching between gameplay and, footage of real life people at the drop of the hat.
I think this is good. It's also just, this category confuses me. Like, what does this category mean compared to anything else? So, sounds good to me.
It's one of those categories where it's like, if you're on this category, it's either because you, quote unquote, got the sauce, whatever that means, or you have like a particularly cinematic direction. Like, when, what's its face? The Hideo Kojima game about walking in the rain.
Death
Stranding. When Death Stranding won this category, I was like, yeah, that's like the perfect example of a game that would get onto and win that category. But otherwise, it's a little bit nebulous.
Yeah. Because I think like Last of Us won it. It's like, because you like the cutscenes. Like, what is the similarity between Best Direction for Last of Us and Best Direction for Death Stranding? Like, I don't understand this category, but I'm also a dum-dum, so that's there too.
Yeah. I mean, the problem, right, is like I think what this category is supposed to be is it's like the game with the best, like the strongest, like authorial vision behind it, like the game that most feels like an auteur created it. But like video games sort of like, not to say that movies aren't collaborative processes, but video games are like so much more collaborative than even movies are that like it feels a little bit disingenuous. Like I feel like a better name for this category is like games that are trying to emulate like that of like an authorial vision despite not really being made in the same way as any of those movies that you associate as having a strong
it's like best
vision.
art, but art is in quotation marks.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
All right, and here we go. The final 6 nominees for Game of the Year.
Ooh.
Hi-Fi Rush, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Armored Core 6, Baldur's Gate 3, Street Fighter 6, and Spider-Man 2.
Interesting. This is the tough one. So the way I've looked at this is that there's 3 that are locked. There's 2 that are competing. There are 3 that are locked. And fucking there's a list of 10 other games you can throw in those bottom 3.
Yeah.
So for me, the locks are obviously Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3. We've basically known that all year. Number 3, I think, is Alan Wake 2, just because of how much people liked it and how close it is to the voting, the cutoff thing. Like, I feel like that goes a long way. Be like, oh, this really weird, interesting experience that's one of a kind. Also, oh, I beat it a week before I have to vote. Sticks in your mind, makes sense. After that, it's like, man, yeah, are we going to put in, what, Starfield, Final Fantasy 16? You just have this list of, like, the games that are, like, close to a 90 on Metacritic. There were just people really, really liked. And it's like, which of those 3 are also going to go in here? This is the toughest one for me. Give me yours one more time.
Hi-Fi Rush, Zelda, Armored Core 6, Baldur's Gate 3, Street Fighter 6, and Spider-Man 2.
Oh, I would love to see Armored Core 6 in there. All right, so I'm going to go with Alan Wake 2, Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3. I'm going to say Spider-Man 2. I'm going to say Mario Wonder. Ooh. And then I'm going to say Sea of Stars. Because we always seem to get one indie in there.
Give me a second.
Who knows?
I want to write all of these in here.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that we got them all.
That is my thing, is that there's those top 3, there's really top 2, and after that, I'll fucking throw spaghetti at the wall.
Spaghetti, just like Mario.
What? I don't know that reference.
So I'm curious, like Armored Core 6, I put that into my list of nominees because I feel like there is still a lot of love for From Software in the Game Awards voting crowd. And
Absolutely.
Like, as much as I think people liked Lies of P, I feel like people will vote for the like quote unquote authentic From Software experience over like the imitator. And so I feel like
if it's Armored Core or Lies of P, it's Armored Core is getting in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
100%.
Yeah. Hi-Fi Rush is probably like my biggest reach there, but you know, it was an early example of like, oh man, could this be Game of the Year? And Street Fighter 6, I'm just trying to think of like a category that's not particularly well represented in any of the prior categories that I think has a really good shot of kind of sneaking in there. Spider-Man 2, I'm in agreement with you that like, thing about Spider-Man 2 is leading up to its release, I feel like there was a lot of talk of like, is this just going to be more of the same? Is this game's story going to be, you know, a rehash of plot threads that we saw in the first Spider-Man game, of plot threads that we've seen in Sam Raimi movies and whatnot? And I feel like what was so impressive about that game is it really, I feel like, proved people wrong and really kind of like proved its reason to exist when it finally released. And so I think, I mean, it's not as hard of a lock as Zelda or Baldur's Gate 3, but I would not be surprised at all for Spider-Man 2 to make it on the list.
Not at all. Like, I like the idea of Hi-Fi Rush. I don't know. Again, it's a tough year and it came out early, but like, yeah, that's a great game. But like, it's so, like I said, for me, there's 3 and then I fucking like, I don't know, dude. Because then you have to really think of like the votes you're getting. I don't remember. Did I hear someone talking about this? Or maybe I'm misremembering, but talking about, no, I think it was Andrew Renee was on XCast, Kind of Funny XCast, and was talking. She asked Jeff Keighley about what's going on this year, And I think I might be misremembering, so whatever, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But about like a lot of the votes getting split, like there being like a lot of games that are like, you know, a lot. There's like again, there's front runners, and then everything else was like really split. And there's like a lot of like, oh, these games are really close just because people are like, I don't know, I guess this one should be in. So I think there might be a surprise or two in there that are just like, who knows? Like I said, throw Mario at the wall and figure out if he sticks or not.
Yeah, I do want to touch on Mario Wonder real quick. Loved Mario Wonder. I had a great time with it. It will probably be one of my favorite games of the year. One thing I was a little bit surprised about was hearing some other people in the industry that are particularly influential when it comes to talking about Nintendo games not be super hot on this game. Brian Altano, formerly of the Comedy Button, currently of IGN and NBC, was saying that he did not love the game because he was primarily playing it like local multiplayer, and he didn't love a lot of the game's local multiplayer settings. Like he I don't remember where this was, but he was recounting an anecdote about how he was playing it with his daughter, and his daughter would get to the end of the level first, and that would basically render control away from him to his daughter, and so his daughter would just be running around the map, and he was like, I don't love the way that this game does like its local multiplayer stuff. And the thing is like I never dealt with any of that because I just played the game exclusively single player with like online multiplayer ghosts helping me out. But I wonder if there are going to be enough people like that who are like, I played the game local multiplayer and it wasn't to my liking.
Yeah, no, that's the hard thing because when it comes down to this stuff, it's like it's not even like what I think is the best. I'm like, what are these people going to vote on? So you don't have to, but it's like if you listen to multiple influencers and press people and stuff you listen to throughout the year, you can kind of guess it. Like when It Takes Two won, I was like, even though I'm like, this is not my favorite game of the year, I would not do it. I understand that this is going to win, and I get why it won because I'm like, all those people who vote on these things were like, it's so different, and it changes all the time, and that's great. And they enjoyed having something new and interesting, and like that's what they value everything because they've been doing this for 20 years. So it's like when you look at Mario Wonder, like if it's like that's another good Mario game, but when I played it, it was fine, and I didn't enjoy it. Even though they think it's a good game, they'd be like, I wouldn't vote for that for my game of the year. So I could see a lot of games that are like, this game is supposed to be really good, right? Just not getting in because people are like, I don't know, I didn't like it as much as this. So yeah, that's how it goes,
And that's the end of our Game on Game Show segment. Thank you to everybody for coming to Game on Game Show.
You gonna do it how Chad does it?
I'll just do that.
Game on Game Show, the game on our game show where we game on the game show. Game. He
needs to write it down. If he writes it down in full, I will do it. But if I need to remember it from memory, no, sir.
Just say it once. I'm with you. That's no problem. All right. Thank you, Cozy. That was fun. Went through some categories. Yeah. By the time you hear the podcast, you'll see how absolutely wrong or right we were. And I'll try to remember this for next week whenever I can either brag or not bring it up if you've done better than I did. That's it for the podcast, though. Make sure to check us out on patreon.com/respawn_aimfire. Normally you vote on Barf Games for the month. That is currently done for the year, but still go on there. There is either on the Patreon page or you have an email if you're a Patreon where you can opt in to getting something sent to your house. I still don't know what it is. I never asked Chad. I have no idea what he's talking about. But if you've been a patron, there's apparently something could come your way if you want to opt into it. So yeah, patreon.com/respawn_aimfire and get some sort of goodie. Or maybe Chad just shows up to your house with mustard gas. I don't know what's going to happen. And then we've done our votes. And we all know what we're playing for Game of the Year. I've got some cool ideas for Game of the Year. It should be fun. We'll see how it goes. But outside of that, thank you guys for checking us out. This is episode 331. And we will see you next time. Is that how do you do it whenever you do your Patreon games?
And we'll see you next time.
All right.